going on? Play. I'm here back with another Epic 7 video, and today we're taking a look at the balance adjustment for September 29th. Here we go, starting off with all of the units that are getting buffs. It looks like Straze is the ML5 choice for this buff. Ravi, haven't seen anything from her in a while. We got Kayron, Aria, Taeyou is getting some buffs potentially. Roana, Dingo, which is a 4-star Moonlight, Khawana, and Hasol. It looks like we're also getting some changes and buffs to Magic for Friends, because that's definitely an artifact that we need, right? Get buffs. And Unfading Memories, which is DN's artifact. Magic for Friends, Mercedes artifact. Not really sure it needs a buff, but we'll see. So moving on to Straze, it looks like he is getting his Star Extinction now cannot trigger a counter attack. So he can be countered on his S3, which is actually pretty nice. So, I mean, this doesn't really change too much, right? I mean, I guess like Rems and stuff like that, or anyone else that can AoE. Well, you know what? Rem, Bellion, who else? Green Armin, right? But still, I think that he's probably an ML5 unit that maybe wasn't on the priority list for buffs, but hey, he gets some buffs. I'm not gonna complain. He already does a lot of damage now. He can be countered on his S3, which is gonna make him, I think, a slightly more usable, because now you won't be afraid to get countered by every single counter cleave unit, right? That's gonna be put up against you. So definitely gonna try to bring him into tanky units, right? But there is that. Moving on to Ravi. Fire Ravi is getting some buffs. You know, she was a unit that back in the day never got any love, and then she got slightly tweaked, slightly buffed, and then she got some like pretty good buffs. And you would see her, I think she was like one of the most prominent units, other than who, like Carrot, in the first E7 World Championship. You would see Ravi everywhere, and then she just completely died out. Now she's getting more buffs, so let's see what she has. So it looks like her Demon's Blood, before it increases the caster's attack by 15% and effectiveness by 10% when they attack or are attacked. This is her passive, okay? But now it looks like that she starts the battle with 40 Fighting Spirit. So she's starting with Fighting Spirit already. Fighting Spirit allows her to S3, and she's increasing her attack and effectiveness by 15% when they attack or are attacked. So she's getting an extra like 5% each time to her attack and effectiveness, which is pretty nuts, right? That's pretty, it can be pretty crazy, because this is up to 5 times. It can stack up to 5 times. So that's pretty insane. Depending on what her multis are going to be after this Devil Drive that I'm looking at right now, we'll see how much damage she's able to do. But her Devil Drive brutally attacks all enemies with a 75% chance to stun for 1 turn. This is her S3. So now it penetrates the target's defense by 50%. So she has an AoE Death Pen on her S3. That can crit, FYI. Okay, that can crit. However, they did reduce the damage on her S3, and from what I remember, she didn't really do too much damage on the S3. So I don't know if this is gonna make her S3 hit like a wet noodle, but counter is where it was at with Fire Ravi, because of her damage increase, right, on her S1s, and then being able to either cleanse herself with the EE or burn or stun with her S1 is pretty crazy. So they are decreasing the damage dealt on the S3. So we'll see, you know, if, I don't know, maybe she has a more utility role now, right? Because she is getting a lot more effectiveness. So she can potentially land those stuns on the S3. So a little bit less damage. We'll see how she plays. Her EE, it used to have a 35% chance to burn for 2 turns when using Slaughter. This is her S1. Now there's a 70% chance to make the enemy unable to be buffed for 1 turn when using slaughter. 70% chance, unable to be buffed. I mean, again, kind of still utility. I think it's way better than the burn, right? But I don't know. I think I would probably still go with the cleanse EE or maybe the stun EE. I think that those were the two that were still pretty high up there. However, the unbuffable can still put her in that sort of bruiser support role if she's not doing insane amounts of damage, right? Moving on to Kayron. Kayron is getting some buffs. Another unit that was kind of forgotten, hasn't got anything in a while. So let's take a look at his Void Slash. Attacks with a sword with a 50% chance to decrease hit chance for 1 turn. Damage dealt proportional to the caster's lost health. Now, when this skill is used, if it was not triggered by a dual attack and the caster has a buff, this skill changes into an attack that targets all enemies. The change attack does not trigger a dual attack. So pretty nice. This is his S1, right? When this skill is used, and if it's not a dual attack and he has a buff, it turns into an AoE attack, right? That attacks everybody, and it can't dual attack. So that's kind of the thing, right? So if, I guess now, does this make him more viable on like a counter build, right? Because his Void Slash before, if he countered, he just dealt damage to 1 unit. But now with this Void Slash buff, I think this means that he's able to AoE off of a counter, right? Because it says dual attacks, but it doesn't say anything about counters. I wonder if that's the way that it's going to work now. Now you're able to AoE on a counter. That's going to be pretty insane. Immortal Will. This is his S2. Before, it would grant immortality for 1 turn, and then it would reset his cooldown of Apocalypse, which is his skill number 3, and it can only be activated once every 6 turns. On the caster's turn, when buffed and using Void Slash, the skill would become an AoE attack. So that's kind of where they changed it, right? Now it's just on the S1 if he has a buff. And he was always guaranteed to have a buff unless he had unbuffable, right? Now his Immortal Will grants immortality and increased evasion for 1 turn. So he's getting more survivability. He's getting the ability to either S1 again or get his S3 off. But unbuffable still destroys him, right? Briar Witch's Aria stocks rising, right? Because of buffable, she can bypass that increased evasion. But hey, maybe now counter, right? Counter evasion, maybe effect res Kayron is going to be the way to go, even though that's going to require an insane amount of stats. I think it could be definitely more viable, right? Moving on to Aria. My girl Aria is getting some buffs. I'll take any buffs that they want to throw at her. Now for Shadow Call. She's attacking 2 enemies with shadows with a 50% chance to decrease hit chance for 1 turn. This is her S1, right? When it is not the caster's turn, effect chance increases by 20%. That's pretty nice. Now she has an even greater chance to land that decrease hit to provide more support so that she doesn't get hit or your entire team doesn't get hit. And they increased her damage dealt, which is actually really, really nice, right? Her Guide of Darkness before would increase her critical hit chance by 30%. And as her health decreased, her critical hit damage increased up to 50%. It looks like they did remove this and they just went ahead and increased the damage that she deals. I think that's fine. I think that's better. The way that I have my Aria built, I haven't used her in a good while, but I had her more as a fast support, right? Try to get as close to turn 1 as possible and then hit the S3 so that she can hide everybody else and then force the enemy to attack her. So I don't have her built on a damage set. However, she's getting an increase to her barrier strength and the damage she's dealing. So I think now she's definitely more viable as a DPS unit. So I could definitely see her putting in a lot more work. Taeyou is getting some buffs. before his tornado sweep attacks all enemies, dispelling 2 buffs and increases skill cooldowns of the target with the highest attack by 1 turn. When the caster is enraged, dispelling buffs effect changes into dispelling all buffs. His thing was that he couldn't ignore effect res. That was his thing, right? He needed to ignore effect resistance because of 15%, and that was his big thing, and he needed some type of survivability. So let's see. His tornado sweep now after the buffs are going to dispel all buffs, so it looks like they changed that. There's no condition on that, and he's also getting an increased speed for 2 turns after he does his tornado sweep. When the caster is enraged, ignores effect res. So I mean, I think that's slightly better right now. I think that's probably the way that he should have dropped, like starting out as a brand new unit. But, you know, I think this will make him slightly more viable. I don't know if he's still RTA ready, though. I still think that he needs something else that is going to, I don't know, help him survive just a bit better. But we'll see. We'll see how he plays. I'm still not convinced about Taeyou, but Roana, I don't think needed any kind of buffs. I think she's fine where she is. Maybe like a cleanse on her S3, right? Even if it's just a 1 debuff cleanse, I think that would have been fine. I don't know if that would have made her too broken, but it looks like her Noble Rekos is going to grant her a barrier after she S3s. So that's not, I guess that's not too bad, giving her a bit more survivability, but not really sure she needed a barrier. Her barrier will increase proportional to her own max health. So, I mean, that's not too bad. I think that, you know, any welcome buffs to units that, you know, might not get too much play are going to be fine. But we'll see here. Blaze Dingo, Moonlight, 4-star unit. He attacks all enemies with a giant gauntlet with a 75% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. So he's getting a defense break now. He's gotten so many buffs over the years that, I don't know, they're still trying to make him work, but he does take very specific gear to make work. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of people don't build him. However, this will make him, I think, really good for Ancient Inheritance, right? You don't need crazy gear for Ancient Inheritance, PvE, right? So, I mean, that's not too bad. I can see him working definitely in PvE. Khawana here. Khawana, Fire Khawana, one of those units that a lot of people really liked when she dropped, but her kit was just all over the place. They changed her and they buffed her. They reworked her kit, I think, and they made her to where she had to be in an entire fire elemental team, which nobody used. No, nobody used that, okay? But now it looks like that she is going to attack all enemies with a Flame Guardian before increasing attack of all allies for 2 turns. So her casual introduction is just going to increase attack for everybody. So now she can definitely be a fast attack buffer, right? And if you happen to have fire elemental allies, she's going to give them skill nullifier. So that's not bad. That's not bad, right? Her Rough Welcome attacks the enemy with a Flame Guardian, dispelling 2 buffs before stunning for 1 turn, increases combat readiness of fire elemental allies by 20%. Again, she didn't have that condition where they had to all be fire. Now, if there are any fire, they're going to get a 20% CR push, which is kind of cool, I guess. Hasol, moving on, 3-star Moonlight unit. I don't know, so far the buffs are kind of okay. They don't seem anything crazy, but I haven't really played with Hasol too much. I don't think I pulled her until fairly recently. She is kind of tough to get if you're not pulling for Moonlights, right? Because she is a 3-star. So it looks like her healing is decreased, but she got a lot of green text. So that tells me that her buffs could potentially be really, really good. It looks like that she was like the counterattack unit, right? After an enemy counterattacks, increases combat readiness of the caster by 30% and increases the fixed damage of Swift Cut by 1,000. Her fixed damage can stack up to 4 times. I think she was really good into like violets and stuff like that, right? Any units that counter So let's see what they did. Now, when an ally suffers a counter attack, so that's pretty nice. Damage decreases damage suffered by 25%. Oh, that's pretty cool. It reminds me of like Pillus, right? When more than one damage reduction effect is granted, only the strongest effect is applied. After an enemy counterattacks, increases combat readiness of the caster by 25%. Okay, so they kind of reduce that by 5%, and increases the fixed damage of Swift Cut and Punishing Strike by 1,000. So now it's her S1 and S3, I believe, or Punishing Strike. Attacks all enemies with a secret skill and additionally inflicts 500 fixed damage regardless of whether the attack hits. This used to not deal too much damage, right? But now she's getting some more fixed damage, and it's there's no condition here. Regardless of whether it hits or not, it's still going to deal some damage. And then it's also going to increase defense of all allies and grant a barrier to the caster for 3 turns. Damage dealt and barrier strength increases portion of the caster's max health. After suffering a counterattack, decreases skill cooldowns by 1 turn. Okay, so she's gonna be a counter attack unit, right? You bring her into any unit that's gonna counterattack you, and they're gonna have a bad time. Her damage dealt has decreased, and they did increase the cooldown of her Punishing Strike. So, I mean, I think that's fine because you're only going to bring her into counterattack units or units that are going to counterattack you. So, I think similar to ML. So similar to like ML Surmia, right, where she has like those activation and you have that play around counterattacks. I think that now she's going to be really good, right, into those types of situations. So it makes me really kind of consider building her. She is a 3-star unit. I think that she probably got the best buffs out of what we've seen so far, right? But let's take a look at the artifact. So Magic for Friends. All right. So this one is going to be Mercedes' artifact of choice. This is her artifact. It only works with her, right? So did it need a buff? I don't think so, but let's see. Decreases damage suffered from a critical hit by 30%. So she's getting tankier, right? And then the way that this works is that when more than one damage reduction effect is granted, only the strongest effect is applied. So she's getting that decrease critical hit damage by 30%. And then if an ally attacked when it's not the caster's turn, she has a 15% chance to activate Dimensional Rapture. And the thing about Mercedes is you kind of see her everywhere right now because of this. If she has attack buff, she can activate Dimensional Rapture. She can also counter off of this as well. So in any one turn, your either entire team or your most squishiest unit is probably gone, right? And this skill effect, Dimensional Rapture, can only be activated once every 2 turns, and it does not increase when enhanced, right? So you can't level this up more than it already is, but it will not activate upon death. So her exclusive artifact Magic for Friends is going to be adjusted to increase her viability, increasing the decreased amount of damage suffered from a critical hit. And it looks like Magic for Friends is activated before dying, and the actual skill effect is not used. So that means that it increases the cooldown a bit, right? So she procs Magic for Friends, but then she dies. So when she comes back, it's on a cooldown. So if it doesn't activate, that means it doesn't go on a cooldown. So that means that when she comes back, she has it already, right? If she doesn't get to use it, which I think makes her slightly more broken. But I mean, it's her own exclusive artifact. Well, not exclusive artifact, but her own artifact. So, I mean, I think it's fine. It's not like she's everywhere right now, right? Unfading Memories, this artifact was never used. It was never used. I pulled, I think, like 1 or 2 copies when I first pulled for DN, and I never used this artifact. But let's see what they did with it. So before, it just healed allies for 4 to 8% after using a non-attack skill. Now it's going to increase effect res by 25% and heal allies by 5 to 10% after using a non-attack skill. So It's getting some ER, which is fine, and then it's going to heal up to 10%, right? So I think this is fine. I think for, you know, any Soul Weaver, you're going to want a Factorize, and they should definitely be putting a Factorize on Soul Weaver artifacts. All right, so that's going to be it. Let me know your thoughts on this week's balance adjustment preview. Who do you think is the winner here? I'm not too sure. I don't think they buffed anyone, you know, insanely crazy to where they're going to be broken. Ravi, though, does seem a lot more viable now, so I'm looking forward to trying her out. Straze not getting anything other than can't be counterattack, I think is fine, but I think he was definitely on the lower list of ML5 units that need buffs. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like always, if you haven't enjoyed the video, hit that like button if you haven't subscribed. Hey, think about subscribing. It really helps the channel grow and reach more people like you who like content like this. Like always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.